Yeah, thank you so much. Good day, and thank you for joining us today. This is the first of our series looking into the election season and the campaign by political parties and what they are promising to do for small business development in our country. Our NDP, the National Development Plan, aspires that by 2030, we should have 90% of all jobs coming from the small business segment of the economy. According to the CEO initiative, we need to be creating as much as 39,000 sustainable SMEs every year, and we know we're near that. So what we have decided to do is to invite a panel, one-on-one series fireside chats between ourselves as the Small Business Institute, as well as the leaders of various political parties, to come and discuss how we can get into this aspiration of the National Development Plan, that as many as 90% of jobs must come from the small business segment of the economy. Our first guest is the Member of Parliament and the Shadow Minister of Small Business Development in the Democratic Alliance, the official opposition party in our country. His name is Mr. Naudé de Villiers. Jan, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome, and thank you very much for giving us your time. I'd like you to sort of kick us off by introducing yourself, where you come from. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your political career, and then take another 4 minutes to introduce the Democratic Alliance, what it stands for. It's been for the last 25 years the official opposition of the country. That's not an insignificant role. Over to you, Jan.
Well, John, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. It really is a pleasure. We are close to the elections, and this is a welcome break from the door-to-door campaigning which we're doing at the moment. John, just on myself, I think if I can give you a quick summary, I'm 44 years old. I come from the Western Cape. I spent the first 15 years of my life in the property industry. Started as a real estate agent, then moved on to start my own property investment business with a friend. The business still stands today, and we still have a small portfolio of properties. And bricks and mortar is really at the core of my love for business, and that is my business background. But during the course of that, we started two separate small property businesses, one that focuses just on investments, and one that focuses on management of properties. And it was a great journey, and it really has given me a first-hand account of how tough it can be to be a small business owner, and how the environment in which you operate, which is so greatly affected by the government, can either put you in advantage or at a disadvantage. And then in 2014, I put on my first blue T-shirt and helped at a DA table in the national election 2014, and just felt the calling. I felt that I needed to be part of the solution of making a better South Africa. My personal and my core beliefs and my values align with that of the Democratic Alliance. And I think if you mentioned I should maybe introduce the Democratic Alliance. I think at the core of the Democratic Alliance, as the official opposition and as a political party, is that we believe in constitutionalism. We uphold that the Constitution is the ultimate law. We believe in the rule of law and the importance of the rule of law in a society. We believe in the market and the importance of a free market system, leaning towards a social market system, but economy where people are free to compete and to do business with each other, but also in balance with the government's responsibility to look at themselves. So it's not just a free for all. Government also has a responsibility to look after the vulnerable in our society. And then obviously one of our core offerings and one of our most important beliefs is non-racialism. We believe that people are human beings, that people are individuals. They shouldn't be defined by the color of their skin. They shouldn't be put in camps according to race or religion. And that people should be free to identify however they want to identify, but that it is not the government's job to put them in these camps, because all it ultimately does, it divides us. And I think that the true rainbow nation, the one envisioned by Mandela, is not one where we are pitted against each other and divided. It is one where we are considered all as human beings, as South Africans, as people who have the same hopes, have the same aspirations, and who should be working together, despite if I identify as an Afrikaner and someone identifies as a Muslim and someone else identifies as whatever they want to identify. Everybody should be free to do it without saying that one person is a different class of citizen to someone else. And that really is, I think, at the core of what the Democratic Alliance believes. And then to maybe just move that on to why we are here today, and that is a discussion around small business. And it is difficult to talk about small business without talking about the economy and talking about jobs, because I mean that is what small business is about. It really is, as you mentioned, and how, as the NDP envisions it, well, it's the core engine which should be creating the jobs, which should be growing the economy. And it's at the Democratic Alliance, it really is our belief that the government is responsible to create the climate or the environment where small business can grow. And John, I was on your website and I just read the about us section of the SBI, and I see you have a similar view to that on your website. It's one of the first things you say as well. And I think it's important to if you say that, if you say, well, that's the core function of government, is they need to create the climate where business can thrive. Then you need to say, well, okay, if you want to extrapolate that, you say, okay, well, basically what you're saying is that the government is responsible to stimulate or create the market that produces the demand for the products or the services which business want to sell to consumers, to the market. So then obviously the next thing you would ask is, okay, DA, I mean, you're saying the government should create this climate, basically stimulating the economy, which will then grow the market for more products and services, so that people have a reason to innovate and start their businesses, and then as a consequence of that, create more jobs and bring down unemployment. And obviously, if you create more jobs, then there are more people with salaries. If there are more people with salaries, there are more consumers. It just builds on each other.
And there's more tax revenue.
Yes, absolutely. And there's more tax revenue, and then the government can take that tax and they can create more infrastructure and deliver better services. So everybody wins. I mean, and I almost want to say that is definitely not unique to the Democratic Alliance. There are very few stakeholders out there who don't believe that this is the role of the government. So I think one of the core beliefs that we have as the DA is, if you want to do everything which we talked about now, if you want to create that climate in which business thrives, people always ask me, well, what legislation should you create, and what would you have the government start doing, and what should the government stop doing? And those are all super important questions, and there are good answers and good ideas to what the government should start doing and what they should stop doing and all of that. But I think what we can all agree to is the absolute most important thing which the government can do, and what the DA holds the government should be doing, is deliver the core constitutional functions of the government, delivering services. So, I mean, it is really, just as an example, it's really difficult to run a business when you don't have reliable electricity or any electricity. You have the money to buy the electricity, but you can't get to it. it's difficult to run a business in an area where there is crime and where the police is overpressured, and where detective services aren't functioning, and where if you or your employees are affected by crime, there are no consequences. It's difficult to run a business if your employees, the people who work for you, they don't have access to good state-run hospitals, and when they get sick or when their families get sick, they are worried and they are stressed and they are at risk. It's difficult for any business to work if people can't get to work. There's not a public transport system. If the railways and the bus services are not working, it's difficult for businesses to work if the employees are constantly worried about their children, and if in the education that their children are receiving at schools, and if the government school is functioning. So I think I'm overemphasizing it a little bit, but at the core of what the government should be doing to stimulate small business is almost to get out of the way of business and just focus on delivering the core services that a government should be delivering. All of the things which I touched on now. So I would like to. We can have a long discussion about exciting new legislation and stopping this and starting that, but I mean, we need to stop the corruption. We need to get the government to work. We need to get government services to be reliable. Because ultimately, if you are born in a poor area, in a low income household, and you are a talented individual, you are being restricted to live out that talent, because you cannot walk on roads which are functioning. The lights aren't working on the roads. You don't have access to water. When you need to study, the electricity isn't working. If you get sick, you're worried about the hospital. The school you're going to isn't giving you the so those people with the talent to innovate and to start businesses, they never get developed right, because the government isn't creating the climate, and they're not creating the climate because they're not delivering the services. And if anybody wants to have an argument over that, I will just say the ultimate key performance indicator of what I'm saying now is the unemployment rate. That is it. If you want to know if the government is doing its job or not, where is unemployment now? What is the trend, and what's it been doing? No politicking. What is unemployment doing? That is, to me, the most important measure of whether government is playing its role in the economy or not.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I would like us to sort of pivot towards solutions. Tell me about the last 5 years. You have been in government in parliament for 10 years personally, but the DA has been opposition party for for 5 years.
Yeah, feels like then.
The DA has been the official opposition for more than 2 decades in our country. Tell me about the achievements in this space around economic management and economic advocacy by the DA, as well as on the small business portfolio in the last 5 years. And then zoom in specifically around what your manifesto is saying around the area of small business development over the next 5 years, if the DA does become part of the next administration or the next administration itself.
So I think to measure myself against my own words, I in the previous discussion we ended with I said the ultimate indicator of whether government is successful or not is, in growing the economy, is the employment figures. I think you're doing your job if employment is growing or unemployment is declining. And the only real measure, so you can invite a lot of parties onto this platform, and I look forward to hearing all of their views. But there are only 2 parties in South Africa which actually have governing experience: the ANC, the National Governing Party, and the DA, because we govern in the Western Cape, and we govern in quite a number of local municipalities, metros and smaller municipalities, and there is a reason why 8 out of 10 of the last jobs, according to the quarterly labor force survey, 8 out of 10 jobs created in the economy was created in the Western Cape. And that reason has got to do with the fact that in the Western Cape, we've created a more business-friendly environment. And once again, I'm feeling like I'm driving this point maybe a little bit too hard, but all we've really done in the Western Cape is just deliver basic services. We've invested in sewerage systems that work. We've invested in roads that work. We've invested in electricity services. We make sure that our local authorities and our metros, that the billing systems are work. We make sure that the officials who work, ultimately the people that have to run the government, are not selected according to their political cards or their affiliation or a cadre deployment system. We choose them and we employ them on their skills, on whether they are a good enough engineer to work here or not who they vote for. And if you do that, if you create a professional run government service where the people who work there are not politicians and are not politically affiliated, then you start delivering services. And if you start delivering services, then you start creating the jobs and the employment and stimulating the economy, which you need. Then your schools and your hospitals and everything else start working. And then in the Western Cape, I think if there's a single intervention which has really not just shown good, is a good example of what can be rolled out to the rest of the provinces or municipalities, it can really be copied. It is the red tape reduction unit of the Western Cape, where we have a whole department of people who are ready to assist small business when they run into government red tape. And government red tape is all over. I mean, it is one of that is also not just a South African problem. It is an international problem where governments and business meet. Governments overregulate. They tend to have just too many hurdles, which a business needs to get over to do business with the government. And that's really what the red tape reduction unit is about. In the Western Cape, if you are struggling with anything with the government, a plan that's not being approved, a liquor license that's lagging, emails that are not being answered, you go to the red tape reduction unit and they have a dedicated team of people who intervene on your behalf and just try and get the process moving by removing whatever red tape is in your way. I think that is the one of the best examples of how a government can actually assist small business.
Yeah, and thank you so much for that. In the last 10 years, we've had a dedicated standalone Ministry of Small Business Development in our country. Its future remains uncertain,
Yes.
whether it will survive into the 7th administration or not. Could I just pick on your brains about the experiment that we've had? Has it been useful? Would a DA administration keep the ministry?
So obviously, any vehicle is only as good as you use it, and I often at this question wonder about, because there's a lot of people who argue, and I hear the argument that small business should just be rolled back into DTI, into the Department of Trade and Industry. I don't think so. So the two important government agencies, SEDA and SEFA, which are now being amalgamated, and we actually supported this in Parliament. So it is legislation which was supported by both the ANC and the DA, because it makes sense. It makes sense that SEDA and SEFA offer the same service. That specific government agency is, in my opinion, completely underutilized and underperforming, and has massive potential to assist small businesses. And one of the issues which we regularly hear about when we do public participation or when we do oversight throughout the country is just the access to SEDA and the access to SEFA. People don't know where their offices are. Emails don't get answered. And if you are serious about assisting small businesses, you know, unfortunately, the one thing which I don't think is useful for any free business, for any business, is free money. So people 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 often, the first thing they ask is, how can I get access to money? But the reality is, what they actually need from the government isn't money. They need opportunity and training. So SEDA and CIFA gives you that. A functioning SEDA and CIFA would give you that. If every single municipality had two or three key points, easy to access, with well-trained staff that can help someone draft a CV, draft a business plan, create, access local marketing opportunities, have a list of small business in the area who are in your sector. If you ran SEDA and CIFA in that way, I think that more than justifies the Department of Small Business, because that's a big enterprise. It's a big venture to have. So on the one hand, I'm giving you two answers. I'm saying I do believe that the small business development ministry has the potential to be a super important stimulator of small business in the small business environment. And I do think, from a legislative point of view, that the two critical pieces of legislation which we worked on the last 5 years, the creating of the small business ombudsman, and the amalgamation of SEDA and CIFA, although it took too long, in my opinion, it is good legislation. Um, you know, to have a committee, a parliament committee, and a department who just focuses on things like that, or any other potential legislation, I think it's worth it. I think that if you really are serious about small business, then you should support having a ministry, having a dedicated team of government officials and politicians who work on focusing on the small business industry, because trade and industry, as important as they are, they focus on the big dogs. They work with industry. They work with people who have thousands and thousands of employees, and they look. That's their lens. They are not positioned to look after, in my opinion, to properly look after the interests of as you call them, the rock stars of our economy.
Yes, yeah, and I think we have covered quite a bit around the pain points of small businesses. We've dealt with the issue of red tape and what can be learned from the Western Cape Government Red Tape Reduction Unit. We've also spoken about the lack of basic services, and very helpfully, you've given me your views about the merger of the Small Enterprise Finance Agency and the Small Enterprise Development Agency, and the future of the Small Business Ministry as a standalone entity. The one, before we sort of round up the discussion, I'd like us to speak about this problem. We call it the silent killer of small businesses in South Africa. It is the late payments by state agencies, by big businesses, by SOEs, and by government departments. It just doesn't seem to go away. I'll give you a very specific personal example. I was a service provider to one of the SOEs, and we had a dispute about payment, and I took them to court. They only settled me 2 days before we went to court. And by that time, what they paid me was 20% less, because the 20% had to go to my lawyers. How do you resolve this problem?
Okay, so I mean, I have to start with, this is one of the biggest problems which I have with the current government. It is the amount of people who are not being paid within 30 days. It's incredible. Every time the statistics get released, and I'm sorry, I'm a member of the DA, and it would be wrong of me not to point out that it's not the same in the Western Cape. You can go and look at it. We pay our small businesses. There is very few, if any, invoices outstanding past 30 days in the Western Cape. And that is because a small business cannot function without cash flow. If you don't have cash in the bank, you can't buy your next stock. You can't pay your payroll. You've delivered the product or the service. And by law, and this is by law, you should be paid by the government within 30 days. It's not an option. It is a law. So what would we do if we get into government? We would enforce the law. And this is one of the biggest problems which we currently have, is there's no consequences. Government departments, you know, for lack of a better word, they stuff around small businesses and don't pay them for 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, and there's no consequences. How do you enforce consequences? You keep the accounting officers, the government officials, personally liable for the money which they do not pay because they are breaking the law. Procurement laws says that you have to pay within 30 days. That is the government's responsibility to do, a legislated responsibility. It's not an option. It's not a may, it's a must. So if we were to come into government, one of the things we would do, which we do in the Western Cape, is you uphold the law, and you uphold the law by keeping people personally accountable for the payment of small businesses. And I'm so glad you brought this up, because I mean, it really is a killer. You just, how do you cover your expenses at the end of the month when you've invested in delivering a product or a service, but you're not getting paid? I mean, it is the worst case for any business, and it really does disincentivize businesses from doing business with government. And the value of government business, the value of services and products that the government needs a year is, I think, is around a trillion mark. So it's a massive sector. The government itself has incredible effect on the creation of small businesses that exclusively deal with the government. So you are killing those entrepreneurs. You are killing those employees if you are not paying them.
Yeah, and thank you so much. I'm now going to give you 3 minutes to just round it all up. How do we fix the economy? Because if we do fix the economy, I think our rock stars will have an environment where they can thrive, create jobs, employ more people, and pay their suppliers and grow their businesses.
Absolutely. So I think if I have 3 minutes to sum up, then I would say the following things are which the DA stands for needs to be done immediately. So the government needs to stop cadre deployment. It needs to create a professional run government service, where nobody is selected according to political affiliation. Professionals, that's what should be running the government. Then, as I said at the beginning, we are a party that believes in non-racialism, and we are against any form of BEE, any form of law which tries to disadvantage certain people and advantage other people according to race laws. What we very much support is a system where you look at the United Nations, at the sustainability goals that was created by the United Nations. These include a lot of things which just make sense. It's ending hunger, promoting education, promoting clean water, creating a sustainable environment. If you say, okay, if you want to do business with the state, and you should be measured against what are you putting back towards the sustainability goals, then that is a great measure to use for true empowerment. Because true empowerment happens when the majority of people, despite their race or their religion or how you want to box them, when the majority of people are at the receiving end of empowerment, not when an elite group of people are just getting enriched. And then obviously we need to have a serious discussion and look at our labor legislation. Our labor legislation doesn't make it attractive for people to employ other people, because it is just so difficult to manage someone who is not doing their job. It is too difficult to basically fire an individual who isn't doing who is not performing or performing against their job description. And that disincentivizes people to employ other people. It literally makes a small business go, I would rather work with the 10 people I have and not grow my business than having 5 more people and having 5 more human resource issues to deal with. That's not what we want. We want people to employ people, and we want small businesses to employ people who want to work and work hard at their jobs. And then obviously we need to look at strategic sectors as well. And one of the most important strategic sectors, I think, in our country, if you take into account that unemployment has got a large portion of unskilled workers, and you look at how important it is for us to get overseas money into South Africa, I think the tourism sector and what we have as an offering in South Africa, I mean, we can compete on tourism with any country in the world. We've got one of the best tourist offerings. And I think if the government is really serious about small business, they should say, okay, tourism is a strategic sector. This is where we are going to absolutely incentivize business to grow, to employ people, because the people who work in the tourism industry can actually be trained from an unskilled position to offer the services and the products. So it's a great win. So, and there are more sectors like that. I'm using tourism as opportunity, but it's to punch smart. It's to say, listen, where is the industries where we can actually incentivize people to grow, which will have that multiplier effect of growing the economy.
Thank you very much, Jan, and thank you for making time for us of the campaign trail. I really need now to go back to the very exciting world of campaigning. And Jan,
Yes.
all the best for the next 2 weeks, and all the best for May 29th as well. And we look forward to working with you for the prosperity of this very important segment of our economy. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you very much. And I would just like to say thank you for the important work that you guys do as well. In the DA, we talk about the whole of society approach. South Africa cannot work if civil society and the government and political parties and business, we all need to work together. It's only through a whole of society approach that we will rescue this country and that we will truly make it the country which people want to live in, that rainbow nation which we all believe in. So the work that you guys do is super important, and I hope to hear from you again and that we can continue this relationship.
Thank you very much, Jan, and all the best to you.